You haven't made me immortal.
Picard Season 1 comes to a close, answering a lot of questions and setting up Jean Luc for new adventures. I want to know what you thought of the episode down in the comments, and especially the twist that, spoiler alert, Jean Luc is now artificial. So let's get started on these Easter eggs. You may have noticed that the synths have two kinds of names. Some are named after flowers like Jana and Soji, while others have names like Arcana, Saga, and Codex. Showrunner Michael Chabon recently explained this difference. The synthetics created by Bruce Maddox and Soong were given flower names, but the newer ones created by other synths named themselves in honor of their father, Data, so their names are all related to storytelling, Saga, Codex, etc. Narek spells out the Romulan Ragnarok prophecy that we've heard hinted at in past episodes.
So you know that she carries a horn from a great pale hell beast called Gamadan.
Now it's interesting that this prophecy is actually separate from the admonition that inspired the Zhat Vasha's war on synthetics. The Romulans just assumed that these two incidents were tied together. After all, in a past episode, Ramda says that mythology is
the news.
A sentiment that Narek echoes here.
I believe it's history.
But he also drops this tidbit.
Some say it dates back from long before our ancestors first arrived on Vulcan.
Now that raised my eyebrow because I always thought that the Romulans originated on Vulcan and then left because they wanted to follow their emotions, not the logical philosophy of Serac. Well, it turns out that technically, Narek is right. There have been several Trek episodes which hint that humanoid life was seeded by other races, like in Return of Tomorrow.
6,000 centuries ago, our vessels were colonizing this galaxy. So we left our seed behind us.
And in the TNG episode The Chase.
Our scientists seeded the primordial oceans of many worlds, where life was in its infancy.
And in Who Watches the Watchers, the Enterprise D encounters a race of proto-Vulcans who evolved on a separate planet. So Narek's revisionist view of Romulan history could be right. It's also revealed that Commodore O's real name is Nadar, and I expect her to remain a villain in the show for Season 2. She keeps ordering her troops to
ready planetary sterilization pattern.
Now this is like the robot Nomad in the original series.
That which is imperfect must be sterilized.
Whose goal was to destroy all organic life.
Biological units are inherently inferior.
Like the AI that Soji was going to summon. But Nomad didn't start off like this. It actually merged with a higher artificial intelligence that made it hate organics.
Nomad was a thinking machine, the best that could be engineered. It was a prototype.
Its purpose was certainly altered.
So maybe Nomad was the first AI to encounter the advanced sense way back in the age of Kirk. When Picard gives his inspirational speech, we hear the original Star Trek theme.
By example. Now, let's see how closely I was watching Rios.
And Jurati drops one of Jean Luc's catchphrases.
Make it so.
Make it so. Make it so. Make it so.
They execute a version of the Picard maneuver, which he invented as captain of the Stargazer.
And blowing into maximum warp speed, you appeared for an instant to be in two places at once.
Narissa taunts 7 of 9, calling her
Sad Queen Annika. 6 years old, and all she got for her birthday was assimilated.
Queen because she briefly became a Borg queen to save the XBs, and Annika was her real name before she was assimilated as a child, as was revealed in the Voyager episode The Raven. And I'm glad that she gave us justice for Hugh.
This is for Hugh.
And by the way, Narissa's totally going to be alive, right? Like she's coming back. Soong uses Sutra's off switch, a kind of failsafe that was also built into Data and lore. I got a little frustrated during this scene because there's a lot of action and drama, and all I had to do was show this video of Sutra ripping out the eyeball. Did it frustrate you? Let me know in the comments. Also, I'm a little disappointed the show reverted to using a skybeam. Those things are so 20-teens. When the Federation fleet shows up, the original Star Trek theme plays. Riker showing up to save Jean Luc reminded me of the final episode of TNG, All Good Things.
Stand by. I'll see if I can get the Klingons' attention.
This series has taken other elements from that episode, such as Picard living on his family's vineyard and his Irumodic syndrome. Riker's ship is called the Zheng He, named after a 13th century Chinese explorer. He mentions the Treaty of Algernon, which was signed 100 years prior and established the borders and neutral zones between the Federation and Romulans. This is not to be confused with the Treaty of Algernon, which called for the fair distribution of cheese to laboratory mice. And then there's this line.
You were quite right.
About what, dear?
Write about what? What does she write about? What did you have to tell Ray? If you think you know what Jean Luc meant, tell me in the comments below. I'm baffled. Did you cry when Jean Luc died? No? Was it because they've already announced 2 more seasons of Picard? Okay. In Picard's vision of Data, he's wearing the same clothes he died in back in Star Trek Nemesis. He mentions his memories were uploaded to B4, an inferior early model that we met in Nemesis, who had kind of a cameo back in episode 1. Tiny detail, Patrick Stewart actually liked this chair so much that when they wrapped filming, he took it home to his house in Oxford. When his vision is ending, the door opens with the same sound as the doors on the Enterprise. And Data gives this lovely speech about death and how it's the ultimate act of humanity.
Mortality gives meaning to human life, Captain.
Way back in the episode Time's Arrow, Data discovers that someday he will die, and he takes comfort in this.
I can now look forward to death. Never thought of it that way. One might also conclude that it brings me one step closer to being human.
The show could have easily resurrected Data by recasting him or putting him in a different body, but I'm glad they chose to give Brent Spiner a send-off instead, because he really aged out of that makeup. When Picard wakes up, he says,
Am I real?
And this is kind of what Soji asked Jurati back in episode 8.
You are a wonder, a technological masterpiece and work of art.
Am I a person?
In Data's death scene, he's wearing a velvet robe. Now, this could be another callback to All Good Things. Also, he wore a similar robe in the episode Ship in a Bottle. He's listening to the song Blue Sky. This is a callback to Star Trek Nemesis.
Blue skies, smiling at me.
That was referenced in the first episode when it was sung by Bing Crosby.
Blue skies.
Who, by the way, is the grandfather of Denise Crosby, Natasha Yar. But this time, it's sung by Essa Briones, the actor who plays Soji, his daughter. Pretty cool, huh? And by the way, if you're interested in hearing Data sing some more, check out Brent Spiner's actual crooner album from 1991, Old Yellow Eyes is Back. Picard's eulogy is from The Tempest.
We are such stuff as dreams are made on.
The speech is actually made by Prospero, who Data once played in a production of the play. In the final shot across the Serena, we see Raffi and Seven are holding hands. Ooh! But this puzzle next to them is actually a Vulcan strategy game called the Call To. In Voyager, Tuvok was unstoppable at the game until Seven came to play. And the crew's badges are interesting. They look like 2 circles or a Mobius strip, perhaps a tribute to Soji and her sister, to mimic the necklaces that they wore. Or they could be a variation of the Siren's Tales that inspired La Serena's name. If you have any theories about the badge, let me know in the comments. But personally, I think the badges most likely represent your mom. The episode ends with Picard giving his new crew their first command.
Engage!
Which were also the final words spoken in the Next Generation's pilot.
Let's see what's out there. Engage.
Well, guys, that wraps up Season 1 of Picard. What did you think about Jean Luc becoming artificial? Let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what you thought of the series and the episode as a whole. And if you're new here, please subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.